Coming up on tonight's UAP News Show.
F16 pilot reacts to Jeju 737 crash. Chris Lehto's expert breakdown.
Hey there, beautiful souls. It's your girl, Allie, and we are back at it again for another episode of UAP Society's weekly UAP News Show. I'm stoked to get started, so without further ado, Justin, say hey.
Greetings, cosmic enthusiasts. It's Justin here. Let's dive right in.
But before we get started, we recently got a bunch of new subscribers to the channel, so we just wanted to take a second to welcome you guys in and say thanks for being here. All right, up first, F16 pilot reacts to Jeju 737 crash, Chris Lehto's expert breakdown. Welcome back to UAP News, the place where the skies are never silent and the mysteries keep unfolding. Tonight, we dive into a gripping story that has aviation experts scratching their heads and UFO enthusiasts on high alert. 5 plane crashes in rapid succession, all within a short amount of time, leaving us all wondering, is there a deeper connection? Joining us for this critical conversation is former F16 fighter pilot and captain of the UAP Society, Mr. Chris Lehto, who will break down the South Korea plane crash from an expert's perspective. Could there be a link to the phenomena we've been investigating, or is it purely mechanical failure or pilot failure? We'll see.
Right.
And just when you thought it couldn't get more fascinating, we'll cap it off with some insights from Jay Stratton, who says the key to understanding and operating ET craft might not be in the skies, but in our own consciousness.
Before we hear Chris Lehto's breakdown of the Jeju plane crash, let's go over some details first. This incident occurred on December 29th, 2024 in Muon, South Korea. The details are that a Jeju airplane burst into flames after veering off the runway and crashing into a wall at Muon International Airport. Yikes. The incident resulted in 179 fatalities, with only 2 survivors, making it South Korea's deadliest aviation disaster since 1997. And I believe the 2 people that survived were the 2 flight attendants sitting all the way in the back of the airplane.
Oh, really?
Yep. They were all the way in the back. Everybody else didn't make it. So it's...
Yikes.
Yeah, it's a very tragic disaster.
Very shitty way to end holidays, and it's never a good time to lose 179 people in a plane crash, but I feel like it's just especially worse during holidays because those guys were probably like heading to some family's house or heading home from visiting somebody's, it's just awful.
Yeah.
All right, everyone, now let's turn to the expert insight of former F-16 fighter pilot and UAP Society's Captain Chris Lehto. In this next exclusive clip, Chris gives us his professional breakdown of the Jeju 737 crash, sharing with us his informed opinion on what could have gone wrong.
Thank you, Ali and Justin, for having me on the show. So, most asked question this week on Lehto Files Discord is about the Jeju crash. So, I was a F-16 pilot for 18 years and actually a crash safety investigator. I also talked to Peter DiNucci. He was on my show a few weeks ago, and he was also a heavy crash safety airline pilot. He was into commercial safety aviation. So first thing I want to say is commercial airlines are extremely safe. So much safer than getting into a car, traveling the same distance. You're way safer in an airplane. So the reason we're talking about this really is it's so rare. And you're not talking about all the thousands of car accidents that happen in the same time that this airplane crash happened. Okay, so first off, they're really safe. Okay, but then we'll go through actually what are the points. So basically, Jeju Air Flight 2216 is a Boeing 737-800 crashed at Muon International Airport in South Korea on December 29th, 2024, resulted in 179 fatalities out of 181. So I guess the 2 stewardess in the very back of the aircraft survived, but with serious injuries. Jeju is a little small island off the coast of South Korea. I've been there, went there to a casino. They have casinos there. It's like their little vacation island. Nice place. So the flight originated from Savarnabhumi Airport in Bangkok, Thailand, scheduled to land at Muon International Airport. And so I have a little cross-check here of what actually happened. So basically you have this time, so 8:54, control tower grants initial permission to land on runway number 1 northward. So usually when you're granted permission to land, it means you have the gear down and locked, and you have good indications on your landing gear. So three down and locked. And they should have also been configured to land, so had the flaps down. So the flaps, basically you see those things, the back part of the wings going down, that lets you land a lot slower. And that's definitely what you want to do. Landing flap up landings already an emergency because you're gonna have to land much faster. And we want to land as slow as we can. So that was at 8:54. So they're in for a straight-in approach. The weather looked good if you've seen the crash video, so it was clear day, VFR conditions, no clouds from what I could tell. So they're clear on the runway, and then 3 minutes later, control tower sends bird strike warning. So birds are very dangerous. In my interview with Peter Danucci, we actually talked about bird strikes. I told a story from Alaska of a bird strike that went down F16 engine, and there was an incentive flyer in the back. The pilot, cool customer, I remember he said, just relax. One way or another, in 30 seconds, we'll be on the ground. So they were either going to eject or to land. They actually landed safely, but the engine was trashed. So a large bird going down the engine is very dangerous. But again, commercial airlines are very safe. They're designed to be able to take this, at least to take the bird. The engine will be destroyed, but it should be able to last long enough to get to land safely. Okay. Could it have gone down both engines at the same time? That could have happened. Yeah, that's what happened to Sully, actually. And again, Peter Danucci and I talk about it in our interview that, he lost both engines and landed in the Hudson. But he's also an exceptional pilot. And I think we'll find out, unfortunately, from this crash, is the pilot's probably not going to go down as being an exceptional pilot. Okay?
Ouch.
Okay, so 8:57, the control tower sends a bird strike warning. So there's basically birds in the area. They're inbound, and then at 8:59, so 2 minutes later, pilot declares Mayday due to bird strike, instructed to make go around. Okay, so this is probably the decision that really caused the crash, or at least they probably could have saved it from here. But if you have a bird strike, okay, the biggest thing is you don't want to reconfigure. You don't want to put your gear back up because the birds could have damaged the gear. And by putting the gear back up, you may not get the gear back down.
Exactly.
So if you have 3 green, you're in a safe landing configuration, and you're definitely supposed to leave the gear down. I'm guessing on a go-around, what they did is they pushed the power forward, put the flaps up, and put the gear up, because that's what you do in a normal go-around procedure, right?
This isn't a normal
it's not an
go-around,
emergency.
right?
If you don't meet your approach minimums, if you don't see the runway, if there's a bus of nuns on the runway, you're going to go around, or if there's an emergency, you're going to go
Sister
around.
Act.
In this case, I think looking back, they're going to say, obviously, the safest thing for this airline to what they should have done is just landed. Okay, so a bird strike, it could impact your engine. It might hurt your gear, but if you already have three down and green, just land. So I think that's what they should have done, is just landed. Obviously, I wasn't in the cockpit.
Oof.
I don't really know what happened, but I think this is the first probably bad decision that they made, is they went around, and he says instructed to make a go around. Usually the pilot says, hey, we're doing the go around, and I'm guessing that's what happened, although it says here that the pilot declares Mayday, instructed to make a go around. Okay, either way, they should have just landed right here, okay? You had 3 green, you cleared to land, you hit some birds, you have some issues. The safest place to be is on the ground in that situation. So I don't know what they were thinking, obviously not thinking that well. Okay, so then what they do is they do their go around, okay? And what you're supposed to do in a go around is, I would have left the gear down, is what you're supposed to do. Actually, I did have a bird strike, one of my few bird strikes. Yeah, the only one I remember where a bird actually hit the plane. I was in Turkey, and basically I'd already done my go around. So I'd done a practice landing, didn't touch down, but because you don't want to hurt the tires. And then I was actually on my go around. So as I'm climbing up, I hit a bird. And in that instance, okay, that was the one point, and actually my squadron commander said I shouldn't have done this in the past, but when I was in the plane, my biggest concern is that it went down the engine. And so if it goes down the engine at that point, there's no way I could have actually done what he tried to do here and go all the way around, come back around and land, or do an opposite approach, which is even a worse idea, is to do this opposite approach maneuver that they did. Okay, so it happened to me. Actually, I did put the gear up, but I thought when I was in the plane that I don't want this gear down, because if the gear's down, if it went down the intake, I'm going to crash, because I'm not going to be able to make it back around. And that's due to glide, where it's a single engine. Okay, he has multiple engines, so they shouldn't have put the gear up. But either way, he does this go around. So he's on his go around here, and then somewhere decides here just a minute later. So basically does the go around 8:59, and then at 9, so 1 minute later, attempts to approach from the opposite direction. So this is where you're actually going to turn and go and try and land in the opposite direction, which is really a desperate decision, right? It's a really desperate decision, because the runway is not configured to land that direction. And we'll find out, they had this really dangerous localizer wall that they should not have been here. Okay, right at the end of the runway. I can't believe that was there. But chances are, they probably runways normally land one direction most of the time based on the wind in that area. So chances are they normally landed to the north here on runway 01 and not to the south on runway 19. So, maybe that's why that localizer wall was there, because they never land that direction. I'm not sure, but he makes this desperate decision here. So something really happened here where they thought they lost both engines, or maybe they lost all hydraulics or control of the aircraft, or they thought they did. Obviously, they were able to get it to some landable. They hit the runway, basically. But he makes this desperate
going
call
150
here,
miles an hour,
which was obviously not the right decision, right? And so what he decides is he's going to try and land opposite direction. Control tower grants permission to land on the runway number 19. I mean, we could do this in a fighter, right? But you're doing it in an airliner. Obviously did not work out for them. Okay, one thing is the reason you're landing to the north on this runway is because of the winds. So the winds are you're always landing into the wind, right? So if you're landing opposite direction, first off, you're going to have winds behind you, tailwinds. That is not, you don't want to land in a tailwind, obviously, if you have to. This runway is not that long. It was only 8,200 feet. That's short. The shortest F-16s could land on is 8,000. Now, airliners like 737s have thrust reversers. So their engines can actually, you'll hear it when you slow down, they spin the other direction. They actually use the thrust from the engines to slow down. So in this case, they actually it didn't help them, because as they're landing opposite direction, okay, the wind is probably pushing from behind the tailwinds. They have the flaps up, which I cannot believe they have the flaps up, and they have the gear up. And I looked into it. There's no good reason to have the flaps up. There's no good reason to have the gear up. You can, even without hydraulics, you can do a gravity assist. So you open the door and the gear falls out through gravity and get 3 down and locked. But there's no good reason not to have the gear down. So they land halfway down the runway, basically 3,900 feet down the runway, halfway down the runway with a tailwind, with no gear down. Brakes. Maybe they didn't have brakes actually, but they couldn't have used they could have used the thrust reversers. But no flaps, right? Your flaps are up as well. So, yeah, not going to go well. You're already in a tailwind and your flaps are up. You don't have brakes. So, yeah, they hit the wall and totally blew up because they couldn't stop at that point, halfway down the runway. If they had landed at the end of the runway, could they have stopped? Didn't look like it, right? He was going pretty fast at the end of the runway.
150.
Yeah, he was going 150.
Your flaps are going to give you like 20 knots. So that's a lot. So I think it's just a lot of terrible decisions right there.
Yeah, sounds like a...
Hit the birds, fine. But there's the runway. You're configured to land. Just land the stupid aircraft. And then whatever happened here, I guess we'll find out when they look at the black box. But chances are he probably had enough time to go around, get their ducks in a square box, come back around, get the gear down, put the flaps down, and now come in and make a safe landing. I think that's what they could have done. I think they're gonna blame a lot of this on pilot error. That's why we have good pilots in international U.S. airlines.
Yeah,
all my friends, fighter pilots, I consider all of them, good pilots. Sully, look at Sully. I mean, he saved it, did an amazing job, and he hit birds, lost 2 engines, and brought everybody home. So, yeah, thank your pilots. Thank your pilots well.
Absolutely.
And thanks for watching. Go to Lehto Files Discord and put in your question for the week, and I'll answer it. Thanks to Ali and Justin for the news show. Watch it every week.
Thank you.
Take care. Peace.
All right. Appreciate you too, Chris. No worries.
Yeah, thank you for that. That was a pretty insightful breakdown.
For sure. And just in case you guys are wondering, this is something new we just started, where once a week we're going to have you guys pose questions for Chris to potentially answer on the show, and then we'll gather them all and pick one, and then essentially he'll make a clip for us answering that exact question, and then we'll feature it here for you. So it could be any question about anything, so just go to UAP Society, or excuse me,
Lehto Files Discord server.
We just recently changed the name.
Yes.
And submit your questions to Chris for us to feature on the show. All right. And also some things that came to mind as he was talking. First of all, super tragic, awful.
Yeah.
Second thing, Peter DiNucci, if you are watching the show, please email me back. I would love to have you on and talk to you about what you know and what you've been through.
So I just find it incredibly strange that they did not put the gear back down or the flaps back down. I mean, did they simply just not have enough time to manually drop the gear? I don't know. It's so strange to me. I mean, The only thing that I could think of is either they lost both engines and made that desperate turn back around at the last second, or possibly they might have shut down the wrong engine in the panic of the cockpit.
I don't know. See, you and Chris have these
Either way,
flight experiences and aviation knowledge awareness to like understand the situation. All I know is that somebody effed up maybe more than once and we lost a bunch of lives and it sucks.
Yeah.
That's my I don't know how to evaluate what happened in between. That's you and Chris.
And it's like this whole sleuth of airplanes that have landed.
You mean crashed?
I'm sorry. It's this whole within the past couple of weeks, it's all these airplanes that have crashed or have had emergency landings. It's really concerning.
Yeah.
And it's very strange. It's highly unusual that so many airplanes within such a short amount of time would have so many hydraulic or landing gear failures.
Right.
You know?
I mean, we were just talking about this earlier, and it's like it's such a small statistical number to have this amount of plane crashes within such a short amount of time.
Right.
Like it's unheard of to have this many within such a small period of time.
Yeah.
And then it's even more minuscule when you understand the commonality that a lot of these were landing gear issues, which is so weird. Like, what are the chances that all these plane crashes happen within a certain amount of time, and then a bunch of them all have to do with the same sort of aviation failure?
Yeah. It's strange. I don't know. You know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't.
We're not saying that they're related, but they're.
No, we're not saying that they're related at all. We're just saying
it's strange. It's very odd that so many airplanes would have landing gear issues within such a short amount of time.
Well, let's go through some of them. All right. As if that wasn't tragic enough, like we said earlier, this was just one of like a recent string of plane incidences, some of which had fatalities. So on December 22nd, 2024, an Aer Lingus ATR-72 aircraft operating as a positioning flight with no passengers on board experienced a nose wheel collapse during landing at Belfast City Airport amid strong winds. The incident led to the temporary closure of the airport's runway, causing flight disruptions. Emergency services promptly responded, and fortunately, no injuries were reported among the 4 crew members.
And I think that one's probably going to come down to pilot error as well.
Oh, why?
Because in the picture that I saw, it looked like the airplane was in a nose-down attitude with the main landing gear higher than the nose landing gear right before it struck the runway again. So what makes sense is they were coming into land and they bounced it. And instead of initiating a go-around, they decided to push forward on the control yoke a little bit, which then nose the airplane down, and you can get into this bouncing oscillation on the runway. And I think that's what happened.
Oh.
Yeah. And then you hit the nose of the airplane hard enough on the runway that it collapses the nose gear. So
okay.
Yeah.
Well, at least nobody died in this one. I'm happy about
exactly. Right. And then on December 25th, Russian air defenses shot down the Azerbaijan Airlines flight from Baku to Grozny after misidentifying it as a drone. I don't know how you misidentify an airline as a drone. It just seems so stupid.
No words.
Yeah. I guess Russian President Putin apologized, but never took ownership of the crash that ended up killing 38 people. There were some survivors on that one. But
people died.
Yeah, it's still tragic.
How do you apologize for something but not like admit that like it was your fault? Like,
I don't know.
How do you misidentify a plane as a drone? See, this is what all this heightened war attitude.
How do you start a war, you know, on a country that was unprovoked?
I'm not even going to crack jokes or anything. Like, yeah.
It's tragic. It really is.
I don't have words. It's just like, oh my God, I can't even. Okay, and then on Christmas, December 25th, 2024, an American Eagle flight from Nashville to New York LaGuardia encountered an unexpected issue during the final approach. The flight crew reported hearing an unusual clicking sound coming from the nose landing gear, prompting them to execute a go-around. After requesting delay vectors to evaluate the situation, the crew declared a mayday and diverted safely to JFK Airport.
And then on December 28th, Air Canada Express Flight 2259 encountered a critical incident upon landing at Halifax Stanfield International Airport in Nova Scotia. The Bombardier Q400 aircraft, arriving from St. John's, Newfoundland, experienced a suspected landing gear failure, leading to the collapse of the left main landing gear. This malfunction caused the left wing, engine nacelle, and propeller to strike the runway, resulting in visible sparks and flames, as you would expect. All 73 people and 4 crew members were safely evacuated with no reported injuries.
But again, another landing gear issue. Like, what is actually
landing gear
going
collapsed on landing, right?
WTAF. Okay, so then on December 28th, 2024, KLM Royal Dutch Airlines flight KL1204, a Boeing 737-800, departing from Oslo Airport en route to Amsterdam. Shortly after takeoff, the crew detected a hydraulic system failure, prompting a diversion to an airport in Norway. Upon landing, the aircraft veered off the runway at low speed, coming to rest on adjacent grass. All 176 passengers and 6 crew members were unharmed and safely evacuated. Thank God. The incident led to a temporary closure of the airport with flights redirected to Oslo.
And
what is going on?
Right, and that's
and then the Jeju incident occurred. It was like Jeju was like the last of that string, but we started with that one. But so on a serious note, like RIP to all the people whose lives were lost in those fatal crashes, and love and prayers and sympathy and hugs to the family and friends of those people that were affected.
Yeah.
Goodness.
I mean, statistically speaking,
it's like impossible.
It's still safer to fly.
Oh, that's where you were
okay.
going.
You were still
driving around on the highway.
Exactly. Many more people die every day on the road than they do in an airplane.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the numbers game, right?
Okay.
But with that being said, I think I would personally try to avoid flying on an airplane for right now.
That's what a lot of people are saying. A lot of people are like, okay, well, I'm not hopping on a plane anytime quickly.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to laugh, but like you gotta find humor somewhere, and I don't know, but yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why all these issues have happened, in such a short amount of time. It's strange.
It's catastrophically.
It's weird.
It's catastrophically strange.
Yeah.
Catastrophically strange.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I don't know. We want to bring it back around to basically airspace safety.
Yeah.
And what's a better way to talk about airspace safety than to bring up Ryan Graves and Americans for Safe Airspace?
All right. On Twitter, Ryan Graves had quite a lot to say. Here we go. A whistleblower came to ASA, Americans for Safe Aerospace, regarding a mid-air collision between a Gulfstream jet and an unidentified metallic object that occurred off the coast of Florida on December 11th at approximately 27,000 feet and resulted in engine failure and an emergency landing. There are indicators that the unidentified object may have been a drone operating off the East Coast with atypical characteristics. The whistleblower is concerned because this altitude is highly regulated Class A airspace that requires flight plans and transponders, but in this instance, there was no flight plans for the object and the object was not transponding. We can largely eliminate the possibility of common objects because a weather balloon would have been transponding. This altitude is too high for hobby drones and illegal for any drone. There is no biological indicator of a bird strike, and video of the engine shows metal damage. He goes on to say, I am concerned the incident is being downplayed by FAA. The report is being classified as an incident and not an accident, which would require public announcement, investigation by NTSB, and an explanation. So what is going on here? Major air safety events should be handled transparently. And in case you guys are not aware of what Ryan Graves' organization is, I have a little explanation for you. So the Americans for Safe Aerospace is a nonprofit organization founded by Ryan Graves and is dedicated to aerospace safety and national security. Their primary focus is on UAP. The organization aims to identify objects in our airspace and eliminate domain awareness gaps to ensure aviation safety and national security. ASA provides a platform for commercial pilots and veterans to report UAP sightings confidentially. They also work with Congress and government stakeholders to advocate for transparency and safety in aerospace. So, a plane hit a metallic object? What?
Yeah, so that's almost unheard of. I mean, how long have they been talking about objects in the sky or UAP in the sky, and we haven't really heard of any of them hitting any airplanes yet?
This is the first I've heard of it.
Right.
Have you heard of anything before that? No. This is the first mid-air UAP collision that I've came across.
Right. And
didn't they say there's also like metal from this object?
Okay, so it can't be a balloon.
Right.
right? In my opinion, I don't think it can be a balloon because a balloon wouldn't cause that much damage to the engine.
Okay.
All right. It has to be something hard that this airplane ran into, right? Some type of metal object, some type of, I don't know.
Okay.
It's something hard and dense enough to cause damage on the engine cowling and the engine.
Okay.
All right. And so it's not a bird, because if it were a bird, you would have the splat of the bird left over. I mean, I fix airplanes that have bird strikes all the time. Okay. And
he tells me how bad they stink.
When they come in, yeah, there's birds.
There's everything everywhere, basically.
Everything everywhere,
yeah.
Right.
R.I.P. those birds.
Yes. So I mean, I would like to know what they come up with, what the investigators ultimately say.
Yeah, because didn't they say that there's like metal from this metallic sphere stuck inside the plane, and can't we like go and test that? Why are you looking at me like that?
What?
Like I'm saying something wrong.
No.
Okay, but didn't they say that?
Yeah, they did.
So can we test it?
Well, if right, if that material gets into the right hands, then yeah, it can be tested.
Oh, but it could also disappear, and whoops, what happened to it?
Exactly.
So we need to keep our eyes on this then. I mean, really, right?
Right. Absolutely.
And then this just also, goes to show how important the Americans for Safe Aerospace organization is, because we need to bridge those, what are they called? Domain awareness gaps.
Yes.
Look at me knowing what I'm talking about.
Right.
Tell us what a domain awareness gap is. We had this conversation earlier too.
So a domain awareness gap is a perceived gap in the awareness of what's in your airspace, what is in the physical space, around an airport or a city or something like that.
Okay.
Right. And I think we had a legitimate awareness gap when the Chinese balloon flew over.
A year ago?
A year ago. So yeah, remember when the Chinese balloon flew over and NORAD came out and said that they had to tweak the radar systems? Yeah, so they had to make them more sensitive.
Okay.
So that they could get rid of any domain awareness gap that there might have been. And this was a year and a half, 2 years ago at this point.
Okay.
All right. So I don't think that there are awareness gaps with the military. I think the awareness gap is more so to do with the FAA and air traffic control. I don't think that the military necessarily informs air traffic control of everything that it picks up and sees.
Okay, so they're just not passing it down the food chain far enough.
That's what I think is happening.
Okay.
Now, could the military have seen this object? Potentially. And could they have told ATC? Definitely. Unless it was, I don't know, unless it was maybe some kind of secret, some kind of secret drone or secret craft or something.
I don't know.
I don't know either. But I really like the Americans for Safe Airspace because it gives pilots an avenue to report things anonymously.
Yeah.
To where they're not scared to get in trouble with their airline or lose their license because you saw a UFO, the whole stigma. Right.
It's very prevalent. It's diminishing, but it's not dwindled out yet.
Exactly.
Still there. Yeah.
But I'm happy that he set it up, and I'm happy that they are pushing, for more people to come forward. Right.
So I'm going to be keeping my eyes and ears out for more information about this flight and, what it possibly could have crashed into. And again, just wanted to shout out and reiterate the importance of what Ryan Graves has going on.
Exactly.
But we also want to not forget that Russian and Chinese airports have recently been shutting down to drone activity as well, as mentioned in these tweets.
Yeah, so we just wanted to bring that up because I think some people have come out and said that the drones in New Jersey are Chinese drones. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. If it was just Chinese drones, why would they be flying the drones over their own airports? And, that doesn't make sense to me. Same thing with Russia. Same thing with us. If it's our drones, why are we flying the drones over our own military bases, causing disruptions? right?
You're saying why would American governments be flying drones over American bases, and why would Chinese governments be flying drones over Chinese airports, right? Because
Exactly.
there's still the civilian level of fuckery that can occur, but
it can, but
because there were also people talking about how this are all of these things that are happening recently, specifically tied to Jersey, is just a bunch of teenagers buying drones from Walmart.
Yeah, I think that's hogwash.
Are you fucking kidding me, dude? Okay, so teenagers buying drones from Walmart are messing with Chinese and Russian airports.
Yeah.
Okay, guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, not only are these ongoing,
happening.
They're still happening.
It started mid-November. We're in January now.
It's still happening.
Yeah.
And it's not just the United States. Nope. It's not just the United Kingdom. It's Russia and China as well. And the mainstream media is not covering. They're not covering what is happening.
Yeah, we have a quick little list here about the recent drone sightings over the past 2 months, and they're happening in the United States, obviously, in places like New Jersey. They're happening in New York, in Florida, in Texas, Massachusetts, California, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Connecticut, Virginia, and then they're also happening overseas across the pond in other countries like the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Japan, Australia. Yeah, this is global. We worldwide out here.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Right. So anyway, just to show that it's still ongoing, we have a tweet from Ross Cohart that says these mysterious objects are still hovering with obvious impunity over one of the most sensitive military bases in the UK, RAF Lakenheath, and others. Yet much of the mainstream media lazily and unquestioningly supports the false narrative that these supposed drones are no longer being seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Richard G replies, this is correct. It is still ongoing. The triangle UAP formations are still being spotted near the west side of Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana. Latest sightings with a video provided was on Monday.
And
so they're still going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Still going on.
Exactly. All right. So then if that wasn't enough going on already, Jay Stratton has recently come out and said some pretty incredible things, in my opinion.
Okay. Hit him with it.
All right. So from Disclosure Party, Jay Stratton, the former director of the U.S. government's UAP task force, believes that consciousness is a critical part of understanding UAPs. Bam.
Mic drop.
Right? And he says consciousness connection could be a key to understanding how some of these UAP are flying, how they're acting. Anyway, let's hear that from Jay himself in this next clip.
Is there anything that you would share with us with regards to the convergence across sectors or specific areas where you think that these UAP and anomalous phenomena insights are very important?
Well, I don't think we should overlook, and you had, Paul and others talk about remote viewing and that consciousness connection. I keenly believe that consciousness is a key aspect of all of this, and perception and all the things that come from that. And that's an area that can get confusing, right? If you look at all of these recent drones day to day, right, it's honestly driving me crazy because people are throwing in, video of a Cessna citation on final approach and calling it a UAP. It's definitely a Cessna citation.
He sounds
and then
like
folks start throwing around
That's what I've been saying.
The terms mimicry and other things that we've definitely looked at. And it gets like to Skinwalker Ranch, as you know, I'm involved out there. The things that you see, and are you really, how is your brain forming that thing you're seeing, and can that be manipulated? And I think that technology is an area that I certainly focused on with my friends Hal and others to try to understand it, and that consciousness connection could be a key to understanding how some of these UAP are flying. How they're acting, how they're controlled, I guess is the best way to put it, right? So you got to have that kind of open-mindedness to approach this topic, and I hope that my government folks are open to those kinds of things. And I know that there are still some key players that are open and thinking out of the box about all those kinds of things. So, I think consciousness is the area that I would want to put more resources and time into if I were still there.
This is what I have to say.
Yeah.
Loved it. Did you have thoughts, or can I express mine?
Super interesting, because does consciousness play a role in UAP? I mean, the evidence seems to suggest that for sure. Also, what I think, I don't know. I really, really, really think that consciousness is fundamental to everything. You know, I mean, how else would remote viewing be possible? How else would telepathy be possible? Which we're learning from the telepathy
tapes.
I don't know. It's fascinating. You know, you really have to keep an open mind, you know, when you start looking into this topic for sure. What do you think?
I mean, what Jay Stratton said, of course, you know, sparked my interest. But it was also super reminiscent to when we were talking with Daniel Bronco, because he was talking about his time at the Soul Foundation Symposium, which, by the way, interview over on Hello Allie YouTube channel. Go check it out. He was talking about how at the Soul Foundation, the whole thing was like kind of geared towards like making money around reverse engineering these crafts somehow. And he felt like the entire symposium missed the mark completely, because he's saying it's like, why are people so focused on reverse engineering the craft? Why is nobody interested in the beings or entities that made these craft? How do these craft operate? Like, why? Like, it's like a deer stuck in the headlights. It's like all it sees is the lights from the car, right? But what about the driver in the driver's seat operating that car? Like, we're forgetting the fact that like these craft have entities or beings that are piloting them. So who are they? What are they about? What can we learn from them? You know, like, we're so stuck on reverse engineering stuff and trying to figure it out for ourselves. But like, maybe we could just figure out a way to ask them. I don't know. Right? You know, like, who'd have thunk? Right. I don't know.
It's very, very interesting. And it's very compelling that he's coming out and saying this now. And of course, shameless plug, I have to take every opportunity I have. If you have not yet listened to, the telepathy tapes, that link will also be in the video description box. So please make sure to check that out. The telepathy tapes will blow your mind. Please listen to them and tell everybody else you know to listen to them, because I really feel like the lessons learned is a huge game changer for humanity and how we operate and function as human beings. Like, literally, I'm not trying to exaggerate. It's like that serious to me. I feel like anyways. And additionally, we have an older Ross Coulthart clip from back in September, I believe, where he's basically saying the same thing as Jay. So let's hear that from him.
I have an eerie sense of it. It's kind of weird. Every time I basically want to walk away from ufology, because it's just so bloody poisonous a lot of the time, something nudges me. And I had another nudge. I can't talk about it, but I had another nudge, another major nudge late last week. And it was like, it was world rocking. It was kind of like, holy hell. And one thing that came out of it that I can talk about is that the implications of it are that, if true, a large part of what's been frustrating our attempts to reverse engineer this technology is the problems with the shortage of people who have the capacity to consciously engage with whatever this technology is, and that you need a particular type of person to operate this technology using your brain and your consciousness.
Gotta love that quote from Ross Coulthart, where he says, you need a particular type of person to operate this technology using your brain and your consciousness. And I also forgot to bring up a second ago that Jay Stratton relates this to his work with Skinwalker Ranch, and how the ranch seems to react more to certain people. And the ranch reacted to Jay Stratton. And there's like a theory about if you have like a certain like bloodline, like if you have Cherokee Indian in you, or a certain, you know, there's like all these different blood strains or bloodlines, whatever you want to call them. But yeah, like the whole idea how the phenomenon can be like aware of the people that are genetically predispositioned to be more interactive with it. It's like, what? You know, like, what? I don't know. There's just so many things that like we could like, there's so many different divergent avenues we can go down with this stuff.
It's
But basically, the bottom line
It's
is
cool.
consciousness is the cherry on top.
Right.
If not, the whole damn Sunday. That's what I'm saying.
I don't know.
Any final thoughts?
Yeah, it's all very interesting. It's like it's mind blowing. You know, it's shocking with some of this information. It completely changes your paradigm or your worldview. It can, you know, and I mean,
hashtag ontological shock.
Yeah. You know, when I first started looking into, let's say, disclosure or UAP.
Okay.
Back in 2017, after that New York Times article came out, I never in a million years ever thought that I would be contemplating telepathy and consciousness as the fundamental base to everything.
Yet here we are.
And here we are.
2025, here we are.
I mean, wow, you know, and now there's so many other people that are coming out and saying the same thing that it's hard to not take that seriously.
Well, here we are, guys.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, I'm here for it too. And we're glad that you are as well. And I would honestly like to know what your thoughts are on this story. I mean, do you think that these crashes are coincidences, or could there be some kind of deeper link, some sort of kind of connection? I'm not even sure. How do you feel about the idea of consciousness being the key to understanding ET technology and the whole phenomenon in general? What questions would you ask Chris Lehto if you had the chance, which you do? All you got to do is submit your question on the Lehto Files Discord server, formerly known as UAP Society Discord server. And at the end of the week, we'll pick one, and maybe your question could be the one that he answers. An invite link can be found in the video description box below, along with the links to all of the other sources that you've seen in the show and in the order that they appear. So please make sure to check that out. And yeah.
And again, we just wanted to thank everybody for being here and watching today's episode. It is very much so appreciated. And if you haven't done so yet, please click subscribe. Turn that notification bell on, leave us a comment down below, and share this video with your family and friends to help us spread the good word. Let's raise the collective consciousness together in unity. All right, much love, peace, and namaste.
To that I have a very simple answer. Reality itself is not a concept. Reality is, and we won't give it a name.